everybody. Welcome to the Media Show on the Pod TV Network. I'm Nick Pallavita. I will be your moderator for today's show. And today's show, we're going to look at something very interesting, which is the weaponization of the Justice Department against Donald Trump. With that, we brought in the author of this book called Born to Fight, Lincoln and Trump, Gretchen Wallert, and let's see what she has to say about the weaponization of the Justice Department. Gretchen, the floor is yours.
Hello, how are you?
Well, we're doing good. We want to hear more about your book and what your thoughts are on the weaponization of the Justice Department against your compatriot, Donald Trump.
Well, I tell you what, I come at this from a historical point of view. The book is about how very similar Donald Trump is to Abraham Lincoln, not just in the times in which they governed, but we are in a divided nation today. Abraham Lincoln, of course, governed over a divided nation, literally, the Civil War. It's not unlike what is happening today in a sense that there are two different Americas, if you will. There are people in America that want foundational, constitutional, the nation in which the founders wanted America to be, governed by the people, of the people, for the people, as Abraham Lincoln said. And there is another group of people who want more of a socialistic America, and those two are battling. We are in a time in which so many people are at each other's throats. All you need to know is, well, you're a conservative, you're a Democrat, they a liberal, they clash as the pro-slavery and anti-slavery forces, which also were Southern Democrats and Democrats versus Republican conservatives in the time of Abraham Lincoln. But one thing that we see with Donald Trump is he has changed American politics, starting in 2016 when he, of course, punched his way onto the political stage, laughed at by every liberal media outlet. And of course, the American people weren't laughing. They elected him. And that was a blow to the Democratic Party and what they wanted. They wanted Hillary Clinton easing right into the liberal nation, socialistic tendency that Barack Obama had begun. And he stood up to that and he basically stopped it. And that's when it all began. We discovered how deep the state is in not just Democrats, but Republicans. Not just rhinos, but Republicans who want things to be status quo, to be the way they have always been. Of course, the American people want something different. What they want to be in charge again. And Donald Trump is fighting that. One thing the Democrats can't do is completely control an election. The 2020 election is a whole different topic, and we don't necessarily need to go there. But the deep state and the administration in charge are enemies of the people, enemies of Donald Trump, and they're out to make sure he doesn't even reach November 5th because they can't control those Trump or bust voters. They don't know how many Democrats, because voting is still in secret. So without being able to control the election entirely, as a complete totalitarian state does, which we are not there yet, but we are moving. They do not want Donald Trump to make it to that election because
Okay, I'm not sure if we can still hear you, but we're going to bring in our panelist from around the world, Sasha Starr coming in from Canada. We're going to bring in Mark Lee from the United States, and from the left coast, we bring in Rick Rosner. So what are your thoughts about this? We have, looks like we have our two parties system. Yeah, Rick, what's your thoughts? It's Trump versus
right.
Biden.
So according to the Heritage Foundation, a very conservative organization, the U.S. it ranks how capitalistic every country is every year. And the US is the 25th most capitalist country. And that's the highest ranking for any country with over, I think, 150 million people. We're not very socialist. The Democrats are more centrist than socialist. According to the Pew study done 4 years ago, the Republicans have moved 4 times as far to the right as the Democrats have moved to the left. The Republicans have moved into lunacy. The Democrats, when they've moved at all, it's not as much. And so, we're not drifting into a socialist hellscape like Venezuela. I'm happily capitalistic. I think everybody on this panel is happily capitalistic.
Okay. Well, listen to Sasha. He's not from this country, but he lives in Canada. What are your thoughts about this U.S. big capitalistic country?
Canada has even bigger problems than the United States because Trump is a crook. He's unelectable, and he'll be buried in not even in November. He will be buried in about a few weeks by the courts in Manhattan for the Stormy Daniels affair, including all the money movements or so on. Canada is a much more tragic situation when, yes, there will be election probably next year, but there is a block of, here is the beauty of 3-party system. And one party, Liberals, with Trudeau on top of it, is making a alliance with NDP, which is a new Democratic Party, which is real nonsense. However, it's a party that have a number of people supporting it. And that block of Liberals and NDP is practically unbeatable. However, it may happen next year that people are getting so tired of this Liberals and NDP. Nobody cares about NDP so much, but they're bringing some electoral voices to Liberals. That's where the problem is. But hopefully it will do. Now with the Trump situation is very simple. I don't believe that Americans are so stupid as to give the second chance to a crook, criminal, and absolutely horrible person.
Yeah, Gretchen, reply, Counselor.
I believe half of America understands that Donald Trump is not a crook. He's not done these things. Literally, the Democrats in charge wanting to get him, why not let the people decide? They can't, because he stands up against the socialist liberal agenda of the Biden administration, of the Obama administration, of the Hillary Clintons of the United States, which includes Liz Cheney, all of those people who want to get him because they're afraid the American people are smart enough that they will overlook the lies and the propaganda they have against him. They cannot let him get to the election because they know how dangerous he is to the liberal agenda. A lot of Americans want him in there. We want him back in there. And that's the plain truth of it. He stands for the America that we want, foundational principles, personal responsibility, capitalism at its best. So all of these things being thrown at Donald Trump, he is none of them. Yeah, they can convict him in a Democrat area because there are so many Trump haters. It's not really unlike the Never Lincolns of the 1860s. Of course, those states seceded. And I find it really humorous that blue states are trying to get him off the ballot. Of course, they did that to Abraham Lincoln. He is so much like Lincoln. And the American people are wanting him back in there. Of course, the American people that have some sense.
Hey, Gretchen, just really quickly, I saw Rick's hand and everything, but if I can just ask a quick question, Gretchen.
and everything. Because one of the things we were talking about earlier was might have been on either World Edition or definitely on economics, with this notion of immigration. And there is no doubt that some of the states that are Republican led have been shipping folks to states that are Democratic led. So I was just wondering your take on that, and all along those lines, because definitely we've had people, whether it's Abbott in Texas or DeSantis in Florida, that have literally gotten people on buses and sent them to New York and other parts of the world that are more Democratic. So I was just wondering, is this notion of playing politics on both sides, or is it just one-sided?
Well, I understand that New York is a sanctuary state. It's also a sanctuary city. Why not send people who are seeking sanctuary to those places? I think they don't understand how important it is for a nation to have a border in order to be a nation. But there you've got a stark difference between the two sides in America today. One of us would like a strong border. The other of us want an open border. And we could ask why all of these illegals are coming into the nation. Well, it's because the border has been open. Why is it open? Well, the Democratic Party needs new voters. They usually tend to look long term. So, playing politics, I don't necessarily disagree with the red border states wanting to ship illegal aliens to sanctuary cities. It helps the sanctuary cities to realize logical consequences for what, the policies that they were happy to say, we are a sanctuary city. And then when all these people seeking sanctuary, I put that in quotation marks, come in, and then they decide, wait a minute, no, we don't want this many people to seek sanctuary.
You
All
just
right,
froze
so
up. And
people have known Trump is a jerk and a blowhard for decades before he ever ran for president. It was no big deal. He was just like a jerk that you didn't pay attention to. He was first investigated by the FBI in 1972 for racist practices in renting. He was anti-black. He wouldn't let black people rent his apartments. He was sued by the Department of Justice and settled with them in 1973, 42 years before he announced for president. And, so he's always been a jerk, but it didn't matter because he wasn't running for president. When he announced for president in 2015, for the past nearly 9 years, his popularity approval has been surveyed thousands of times. And he's remarkably consistent. 40% approval, 55% disapproval. He lost the popular vote in 2016 by 2.85 million. After 4 years of him being president, he lost the popular vote by 7 million in 2020. A majority of Americans don't want him. And in 2 surveys of presidential historians whose job it is to determine which presidents were good and which presidents sucked, in surveys in 2018 and again this year, presidential historians, both liberal, moderate, and conservative, ranked Trump the worst president in U.S. history.
Hey, just really quickly, Gretchen, and to come back to our original question before you popped off and everything along those lines. It is my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you said that a lot of these folks that are coming over from Latin America will be voting Democratic, or that's part of the reason that the Democrats want them and everything. And it is my understanding from having some friends in that population that quite often they vote very conservatively, and they oftentimes vote in that conservative Republican kind of wing. Not saying all of them, because definitely that is not a homogenous group, but there is a number of folks. We can look at Cuba, we can look at a number of other parts of Latin America that usually vote heavily Republican. So how do we know that all of these folks that are coming over are going to be voting Democratic?
We don't know that, but odds are most of them will be voting Democrat.
Except they won't be voting for 10 years. It takes an average of 6 to 10 years from the time you arrive in the U.S. And you have to, establish that you arrived legitimately to become a voter. So anybody arriving on the border now doesn't even have a chance of becoming a voter until the 2030s.
That's actually true. It's based on federal law. So you can't, no immigrant that's coming to the border now, last year, year before last, none of them are voting because they can't. It's illegal for them to vote.
You don't even have to show an ID.
Incorrect. You still
in
have
most
to.
States.
I'm sorry, Gretchen. They are not voting. That is a myth that they put out there just to demonize the actual undocumented workers coming across. So they cannot vote. They cannot just walk up, even without showing an ID, make up a fictional place that they live because they have a list of individuals that they live, list of places and people that vote at those particular polling places. So, and then on top of that, just to point out another fact is the fact that they have done study after study after study to point to the fact that that there has not been any type of illegal voting or any voting mishaps and stuff like that. And then when they have found it, it's most likely leaning on the Republican side.
Who is they? They is nefarious.
Even the ones that Trump
people who've audited billions of votes over decades.
Votes. They've done studies. Bush did a study on the actual voting over a number of years as well. Nobody's found any irregularities that Trump is talking about. It's just a talking point that he's utilizing to manipulate his base into distrusting the government. And even worse, he's actually doing it to the judges because he's actually creating distrust in all of our systems. So he's destroying our
Americans distrust
illegals won't even break the speed limit. I live in Los Angeles, which has a lot of immigrants, and everybody drives 10 miles over the speed limit. But when you come across somebody who's going 5 miles under, you get next to them and you look at them and go, "Oh, Mexican." They don't want to get in trouble. If they don't want to break the speed limit, they don't want to risk going to prison or getting deported for trying to vote. It's a low reward, high risk activity that nobody does. I mean, there are some people at the villages will try to vote twice for Trump, because they're insane and they got like old people herpes from all the swinging at the villages.
Immigrants are less likely to commit crimes. It's based on multiple studies, even from the Cato Institute, as I shared prior. It is actually a fact that immigrants commit less crimes in comparison to native-born Americans.
So why is New York City screaming,
which makes sense because you risk everything to come to America for economic opportunity? Why would you took to this horrible journey, paid thousands of dollars, got raped on the way to the U.S. to come to the U.S. for opportunity? Why would you jeopardize it by trying to vote illegally? Crazy.
And just to point out to your question that you're just asking, Gretchen, about why is New York wanting to stop it? Well, we send federal money to Texas for border issues. New York isn't a border state. So therefore, they do not have the funds nor the resources to deal with the influx of immigrants because they don't have that issue. They're not on the border. We send that to Texas and other border states. So
I think any sanctuary city can.
To answer your question, the fact that they are like DeSantis is illegally using money from Florida to fly people everywhere for a political stunt is a bad thing because those states do not have the funds or the resources from the federal government to actually take care of immigrants because they're not on the border. It's the same. It's the same as if we send stuff for dealing with ocean issues to the middle of somewhere like South Dakota.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
So it's just common sense, but it is a great political talking point to keep those who are so sewn in to whatever Trump. Because the irony of this whole thing,
the open border is not because
the irony of the whole thing is that Trump has been convicted of fraud. Multiple people around him have gone to jail for breaking the law. Yet
What conviction?
he is blindly by the people.
What
that follow
conviction
him,
of fraud?
he has to pay. He's been convicted of fraud. Those tax evasion things that he just had that court case about, where he had to pay $450
Yeah, that's real
million.
estate
There's
fraud.
no
Well, that's
fraud.
just fraud.
The
So
American
It's real
people
estate
see
fraud. He
through
was
it.
absolutely
fraud,
convicted of $500 million
Yes,
in
it's fraud.
decades worth of real estate fraud.
And what's
And
the fraud? What's the hurt? What's the American people see through
Wait,
this?
you just said he
So
They
wasn't.
Gretchen,
know it
Now
is
you-
the problem
weaponization.
is, Gretchen,
It's
the problem
Democrats
is,
out
for
to get
example,
him because
no.
they can't
It's
control
It's funny
another
how
election.
he's the only billionaire that the Democrats are out to get. Yet they didn't go after Nikki Haley. They didn't go after all these other individuals that are
They're
on the thing.
after Elon Musk.
They only went after Trump. It's because Trump has gotten you to believe that he is somehow some saintly figure who's done nothing ever wrong.
Oh, he's not
But yet you
saintly. He
cannot
just fights
see-
back.
So you're okay with him committing rape?
No, he didn't
He's
commit
like
rape.
liable.
That was
Like,
a
you're okay with him
preposterous,
committing
made-up
all these
thing.
other things.
He
Two
did
separate
not
juries
commit
found him
rape.
liable
Rape.
for
He
raping
fights
E.
back
Jane
against that.
Carroll with his fingers. They found him liable for jamming his
Yep.
fingers without consent into E.
Exactly.
Jean
And they
Carroll's vagina.
completely eliminated any
Hey,
of
Rick.
the lawyers bringing up what this woman really was.
No, actually,
And-
he had the
and
opportunity, but declined to
Democrats
do so.
playbook.
He had
all
the
the
opportunity, but
way. He
declined
was
to
not
do
convicted of rape.
so. Gretchen, he
Mark,
had
can
the
I
say something?
Okay.
Yeah, hold on a second. Let's hear from Adam.
This
Let's hear from
gang
Adam.
of Democrats right
What-
now, and it just that's what it is.
Nope.
A
Incorrect.
gang of Democrats
I just-
out to keep Donald
Incorrect.
Trump from a legitimate election. If they
Incorrect.
didn't hear
Okay,
him, they
so
would
we-
not
okay.
be out to get him.
Yeah,
Oh
hold on
my
a second.
goodness, the hatred
Mark.
for him is
Yes,
so
Adam. And we
palpable.
want to hear from Adam.
Like the hatred for Abraham Lincoln. It's there. The American
not like
people
Abraham
are
Lincoln.
ready for
Donald
Trump
Trump is
to
way.
set things right.
Donald Trump.
You're right. You're right. Abraham
It is
Lincoln was always
weaponization.
jamming his
No,
fingers
it's
up
Absolute
women's vaginas. He
weaponization.
couldn't
Not at all.
stop Honest Abe from digitally raping. He was always in his
Abraham
top hat.
Lincoln.
He was always fisting ladies.
When you
Abraham
guys
Lincoln
get
did
your
not
facts and
rape
your truth
anybody. Abraham Lincoln
situated.
did not brag about seeing young girls change at his pageants. Abraham Lincoln did not rant and rave about wanting to sleep with his daughter.
No, you're talking
Abraham
about
Lincoln
rape
didn't sleep on his
conviction.
first wife.
You're
Abraham
talking
Lincoln
about a
didn't sleep
rape
on his second
conviction.
pregnant wife.
And I'm
Abraham
saying
Lincoln
it
Can I say
really-
something? Or-
Yep.
Adam,
Adam,
what do you
hold on
have
a
to say?
second.
Adam, go ahead.
It happened.
I just
at all.
I wanted to apologize for being late. Gretchen, I've never met you before. It's very nice to meet you. I've seen you on some prior shows and really appreciate your intelligent opinions. And I'm sorry that you alone have had to deal with these panelists for the first 24 minutes of this show. Okay. Trump was not only not convicted of rape, E. Jean Carroll is lying. Okay.
Oh,
She
that
is
case was fake.
full of SHIT, and she's also mentally unwell. And I think you should look at her quotes about rape. Why don't you look at her what she has said about rape in the past?
Oh, they
She
could not.
is
Oh, yeah.
just
Okay.
like Christine Blasey
not
Ford
even bring
lied.
that in the
too.
courtroom.
Trump
Adam.
was a great
One-sided
president.
weaponization.
Under Trump, the borders were secure, inflation was lower, employment was higher, taxes were lower. We
Incorrect.
weren't making fools of ourselves internationally. Under Biden, the opposite has been true. Trump wins re-election because
Adam.
people's lives were better under Trump than under Biden.
Incorrect.
Adam, here is one thing. I can agree with you that most likely.
And I want to congratulate
Yeah,
again Mr. Cruz on his
I
re-election.
don't think that he raped Eugene Keller. You know why? Because Stormy Daniel gave her testimony, and she said,
Sasha, a jury found him not. First of all,
Adam,
this was
listen
not a
to that.
criminal trial. It was a civil
Okay.
trial, and they didn't even
Adam.
find him liable for rape.
Adam, don't take yourself
Incorrect.
so
Read the
serious.
judge's
That will
report.
make your day.
You're a poor lawyer.
He couldn't rape Eugene Carroll. You know why? Because Stormy Daniel gave her testimony. What she said, that his sex act lasted 3 seconds. And then he has very small
So?
penis. So with that, I
Oh,
don't
that's
think
really
he
honorable of you to
raped
say that.
anybody.
That's really
Right.
honorable of you to say that. Gretchen has had to sit here and
It's what I
tolerate
said.
this
It's
for
said
24
women
minutes.
have sex.
Not
Listen,
3
you're
seconds, 24 minutes
Sex.
listening to this nonsense.
I knew
Thank God I'm
exactly
here.
what this was going to be when you start talking about weaponization. This is exactly what it is. Let Donald Trump, let the people decide, not just the blue states, the electoral colleges, so that we all have a voice.
Thank
All
you, Gretchen.
states.
It's
Here's the
called
funny thing.
democracy.
Here's the funny thing about
Thank
the
you.
ignorance of yelling at.
Gretchen
Here's the
makes
I
funny-
have
oh,
to go. I
to
have
be-
a
Actually, hold on, everybody. Rick has been
so
polite.
much.
Gretchen,
Stop it,
really-
Toby.
Gretchen,
Been
real
polite.
quickly before you leave.
I want to be fair.
Go ahead, Rick.
I want
Gretchen
to
was
be
born to fight.
fair to Donald Trump. He is only at 1/3 of a Cosby and 1/4 of a Weinstein. 80 women credibly accused Cosby of rape. Only 1/3 as many. Only 27 women have credibly accused Trump of sexual harassment, sexual assault, or rape. That's only 1/3 of a Cosby.
Hey, Rick,
Only
80
one of
people.
Trump's accusers was a 13-year-old girl at the time of the alleged rape. So, you know,
Rick, 80 people
be fair.
accused Cosby of rape, right? How many of those 80 people got a criminal conviction?
Didn't Cosby go to jail?
well, one
And
or
was
two,
he not?
and
Was it
then-
not
Hold on,
overturned?
hold
and he
on,
was
Adam,
released?
Adam,
Yeah, point made.
It was
He went to jail, right?
overturned
Bye.
on a
Argument done.
technicality.
Argument
Hold
done.
on,
He
in
went
a
to jail.
technicality in the jury instructions, and most of the women,
Uh-huh.
it was beyond the statute of limitations. Because
How many
women
of the
are
80 people
reluctant.
got criminal convictions?
He went to jail, right?
One. And then he
Gretchen, I'm
reached
so
a
happy that you're
settlement.
back because they are trying to say
civil trial
that Trump is guilty of
15 years
something.
before where a
He
woman
was
got a
found not
settlement.
liable for rape, and it was a civil trial, and E. Jean Carroll was lying.
Incorrect.
I believe in
Incorrect.
democracy.
Incorrect.
And when you look at
This
the
is
democratic
what
process,
weaponization is.
they're going to choose Trump because their life was better under Trump than under Biden.
No, hold on a second.
Stop it,
Hold on a second.
Toby.
Hey, Toby,
It's
hold on a
so
second. And
people cannot elect him again.
hey,
No,
Gretchen, just really
incorrect.
quickly. Well, Gretchen disappeared because I was going to ask her, but I'll ask you, Adam, because I've heard this weaponization.
Should we call
charge.
911? What happened to Gretchen?
She was going to hopefully pop back. She is popping in and out and everything. But I'll ask you the question: is weaponization only on one side? Because I know that even here in North Carolina, there have been some crazy things that have been said by our lieutenant governor. As a matter of fact, I think a couple of years ago, he said he'd rather watch paint dry than watch basketball in this area that is very much basketball friendly and everything. And he's also said this whole thing about there being lizard people out there and all along those lines. So I just wonder, is the weaponization only on one side? Because some people would argue that there was the reason that Barack Obama got elected was he was doing the same thing that Trump was doing, which is that he was going against the status quo. I'm not saying that
The
that's true.
Republicans have weaponized the legal process just the same as the Democrats. Look at what they did to Bill Clinton. It was an absolute disgrace what Newt Gingrich and those morons, otherwise known as Republicans, did to Bill Clinton. Look at how the Senate made it impossible for Barack Obama to pass any meaningful legislation, particularly the right-wing Republicans. The blame is on both sides, and anybody who's fair-minded would recognize that.
Sperm has elected two presidents in our lifetime. Bill Clinton gets sperm on a dress. That leads to Al
Who
Gore
cares?
So no, I'm just saying that it's happened twice. So he gets sperm on it, like Bill Clinton gets caught ejaculating on Monica Lewinsky. Gore doesn't use him to campaign because Gore's disgusted with Clinton. Gore loses the election because of ejaculation. Bush gets elected. Anthony Weiner has to have internet sex with underage girls. Because of that, the FBI reopens the investigation into Hillary Clinton 11 days before the election, and Trump gets elected, all because a couple guys had to jizz. So yeah,
Hey,
it's
just
a
really quickly along-
Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
Hey, just really quick.
The problem is that you will not acknowledge that Democrats are guilty of the same thing, while I will.
How you are saying again? This gets back to the whole So the weaponization argument that started under Trump because what he tried to do with a couple of other things before even during the election and stuff that was going on in 2020. That's what Trump was doing. Trump was in office. He was in control of the actual offices. So when we talk about weaponization of the government at that time, again, Trump was in office. Biden didn't hold office. So when you talk about weaponization, remember, you're talking about Trump, not Biden. And even if you're talking about right now, oh my gosh, they're weaponizing the government, so on and so forth. You are stating that Biden is using the government against only Trump, not anybody on the down ballot where they might lose Senate seats, not anybody on the down ballot where they might lose House seats and actually lose the House again, or lose the Senate or lose the House. Only Trump is the one where it's weaponized. That is where the whole misinformation and that has actually lodged into people's minds because Trump has committed crimes. Everybody around him has committed crimes, and it's coming to the centerpiece. But for some odd reason, oh, well, Giuliani did it. Trump didn't really know what he was doing. Oh, well, Michael Flynn did it. Trump really didn't really deal with him. No, these were centralized characters in the Trump campaign. Trump was actually at the head of these things. So when we talk about weaponization, you've got to be able to understand that it's not the weaponization. Trump is actually being held accountable just like these other individuals are held accountable. There are problems where people go after people, such as the current House GOP doing this false impeachment of not only that did for Mayorkas, as well as going after Biden, because there's no actually there. No matter how many times they keep going after it, they had their centerpiece that was the smoking gun that they found turned out to be a Russian propaganda guy who was paid by the Russians. The next individual is in jail for lying. So that is weaponization of the government, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about, oh, well, they're going after Trump, a man whose whole inner circle is in jail because of dealing with him. Michael Cohen lied for him in the hush money case, all this stuff. So that's the problem, is the messaging is there. Sure, the GOP does a great job with messaging, but it's all a lie, and people have fallen for it.
Well, the problem is that both sides do it. Obama did it with the IRS. Biden is doing it, and so is Letitia James, Fani Willis. I happen to know the laws in these jurisdictions, and the indictments are so pathetically weak and so politically motivated, and they even campaigned and admitted so. My only point is that both sides do it, and Trump is just as guilty as any of the other politicians. But what people have to look at as voters, they have to say, our decisions between two really, really flawed people, as it is in most every election. So the question is your life better under Trump or under Biden? And I would submit that the voters believe that it's Trump. But yes, the law has been weaponized, Tove. You're right, by Republicans, but it has been by Democrats. And I think you need to really be more balanced in your viewpoint if you're going to retain your credibility.
Just to point out, the two cases that you pointed out to, the IRS case, it was factually debunked, your idea that, oh, well, it's Obama just used it against these entities.
Okay.
Well, yeah,
you talk about misinformation.
Let me finish. I let you finish. And we were doing good. So in that IRS case, it was actually pointed out that it was not just going after the entities that were sitting on the right. That was actually factually proven that it was not happening. It was actually a balanced approach that was written, but nobody seemed to care about it. In the Fani Willis case, she slept with somebody, but we're arguing that, oh, well, she shouldn't have slept with anybody over the fact that Trump legitimately tried to steal an election because he placed fake electors. He put pressure on the actual governors to find actual extra votes, so on down the line. It's not that she slept with somebody.
Again. It's that she slept with somebody and appointed him as the prosecutor.
You're interrupting again. You're interrupting.
I mean, are you almost done?
I'm trying to. So if we getting caught in this going back and forth, that takes more time out of actually the answer. Rick had his hand up next, and I know he wants to ask something too or say something into this conversation. So again, just don't interrupt me. I'm not going to interrupt you. We're going to play this game out perfectly. So in that Fonnie Willis case, I was just going to finish out. In the Fonnie Willis case,
Jacoby,
yes.
why aren't you chastising Rick for just interrupting you? Why only me?
Rick actually let me finish. He listened.
Oh, he did? He just interrupted you. Why did you chastise him like you chastised me?
So now instead of talking about the topic that we're actually trying to talk about, we're going to argue about interruptions because you can't pay attention or even be a gentleman and let people go. So let's get back to the point.
Go ahead. What you had to say about that?
So what I wanted to finish was,
I want to say that Trump.
Okay,
Sasha, how do you spell ridiculous?
Let Rick go, please, Adam.
All right, Trump has been running afoul of people for all of his life.
Rick, don't interrupt Jacoby. That's wrong. And Jacoby, how deferential you are to Rick.
Trump has been involved in about 4,900 lawsuits. So either he's being sued or is suing somebody about once every 3.5 days for almost the past 50 years. That's people say, well, that's just because he's a businessman. This is not a normal number of lawsuits for even a real estate developer. The number of lawsuits he's been involved in is about the same number as the next most sued real estate developers combined.
What do you mean by involved in? How do you define involved in? He's a billionaire, and over what time period?
Over
as a third party.
So either
what do you mean by involved?
He's suing somebody or he's being sued, and
so what?
You can go online and you can look it up, and then you can see his number of lawsuits compared to other real estate developers.
So in your world, it's enough to accuse somebody of wrongdoing to draw a negative inference. That's basically what you're saying.
Well, I'm saying that if you look at the next 4 most litigious real estate developers combined, he still has more lawsuits than that. He's the most sue happy and most sued, I think, individual alive in America today.
And just
Sasha?
to keep going on that.
Yes,
keep going on that.
Sasha, you are a very intelligent, intelligent man. You must see the nonsense. You must see this nonsense for what it is, I hope, right?
This is why you're a poor lawyer. So again, just to point out and just to reiterate with Rick, or just to co-op with Rick, because yes, he is one of the most sued individuals that we've ever had to deal with.
Yeah, and don't you ever call me a poor lawyer again.
Adam, we're not going to do this. You cannot out-talk me.
You're the one who's making the attack.
We're going to end this.
I hope the audience sees what nonsense is being pushed here.
You just can't keep your panties in a wad. So now, just to point out, there we go. Got to laugh. That's what I was going for. Now that I'm keeping quiet for just a second. So what I'm just pointing out is what Rick is saying is very true. And we cannot use the excuse that he's a billionaire. And these other real estate developers are also very rich as well. So what the problem is that, again, we keep making excuses for Trump being in court and saying, well, he's innocent because of this. They're only going after him. They're not. The dude is a crook. The dude is a con man. And he's been doing it his whole life.
I said that both parties were responsible for wrongdoing, and I also said that the mere allegations against somebody are not evidence of guilt. In your world, only Republicans can do wrong, and accusations are enough. Well, you know what? Why don't you move?
Did I ever say that? No.
And Sasha, I hope the audience sees
Mark had
the nonsense that is being peddled on this show.
No, I had a quick
because that's what this is. Nonsense. I offer a balanced perspective. And what did you do? You called me a poor lawyer. You insulted me. Okay, go on.
Hold on a second, everybody. Because this is a real quick point I was getting to make. Because even when we think about politicization and that taking place, there is things that happens even in the sports world. So I was wondering your thoughts around this, because I do know that we just recently had and last year they would have finished in second place as well. But I remember that last year, I believe Caitlin Clark, when Jill Biden was saying that she wanted to invite both the LSU and the Iowa players, that she didn't want to go there because of it being like this should only be for the winners and not for the second place winners, when I think Jill was trying to kind of like honor Iowa in some way and everything in that space. And some people would say that a number of people were rooting for Caitlin Clark because of this whole notion that comes up in sports of the Great White Hope and all along those lines. So I just wanted your takes on politicization even in the sports world, because there are a number of people that were probably rooting for Iowa because it was made up of mostly white women that were on the team.
Great White Hope. What a racist statement. Why are we invoking race?
I'm just saying that there's a number of people that were rooting for that reason.
Yeah.
Actually, Mark,
The people who are for diversity, equity, and inclusion are your racists, my friends.
Your comment is actually a legitimate discussion.
I
Adam never has.
I can hear him.
In terms of what you're talking about, yes, there were a bunch of people that really were rooting for Caitlin Clark to be that Great White Hope, and a lot of people did, in a sense, put the position of bully and all the bad terminology onto the individuals of South Carolina. However, that wasn't the vast majority, which is a good thing. And it was good to see an actual great basketball game take place. And South Carolina deserved it. They were a machine. They really put together a great game. But yes, what you said is true. There were some people who really were rooting for Caitlin Clark because they wanted the Great White Hope. She was the Great White Savior in basketball. They had this whole theme in their mind. And they had that opposite side against South Carolina. But that wasn't the vast majority, which was great to see.
Who? You make these allegations. Who was saying she was a Great White Hope? Who?
Adam, you can go online and search.
Yeah, there were a number of players, and there was even some past
so you
players.
take a handful of people of the media highlights, and you extrapolate that.
Can you offer something to the conversation besides peanut gallery comments?
So you personally insult me, and you think that's logical. All I've said was both parties are responsible for weaponizing the law. That people are better off under Trump on the body, which is an empirical fact. But yet you insult me.
We were talking about South Carolina.
Call me a poor lawyer and invoke race.
We were talking about South Carolina.
You are the problem. You are the problem, and people see it. And you are the best example of why people are voting for Trump. And I suspect
thank you for the compliment.
You are a Trump supporter.
You're saying the same thing repeatedly. Thank you for the compliment.
I know.
Let's go to Rick.
I know.
We got Rick.
Your debate tactics are debate 101, and I just recognize them. And I hope Sasha would come in and intervene.
Adam, you said all this
an intelligent voice here.
Let's go to Rick.
Rick and then Sasha.
All right, so I just Googled Caitlin Clark Great White Hope to see what came up. There's a TikTok with 56.5 million views called Caitlin Clark is the Great White Hope. And when you Google it, you get 11 million hits.
So I mean, what? Do you know how many TikToks have millions of views?
All right,
what are you doing?
The discussion is out there. The discussion is out there. Whether most people believe it. I mean, I'm a nerd. I get excited about statistics. When I heard there was a girl breaking every record, I had to start watching her regardless of her race, because it's math porn for me. I followed Wayne Gretzky because he broke a lot of records. Anybody who breaks a ton of records, I'll follow him.
Rick, all I'm going to say is your shirt is one of the coolest shirts I've seen in a long time, and I wish I could get that shirt.
That is a cool shirt. I was thinking the same thing and everything. But there was ties even to, because actually the record that she broke has ties to North Carolina, because even though Pistol Pete was from
I love that shirt.
Louisiana, he actually went to Broughton for his high school, so he had some very much ties to this area. So I was following it for part of that reason, and he actually did do a great job. And it was interesting, speaking of the media, that Diana Taurasi, I believe it's her name, who is a very famous now retired, I don't think she's still playing, but retired WNBA player. She was basically saying that while she was getting all of those accolades, meaning Caitlyn was, then now she's going to get a real world awakening, is basically what she was saying, because she was saying that she's going to go play in the WNBA.
Probably will.
Play it for years, and that it will be as
So-
easy as it was in college.
So what's actually really kind of cool is 2 actual rappers offered her probably more money than she'd make it in the WNBA. Ice Cube offered her $5 million. And there was another offer for another rapper for $10 million. I hope she does go to the WNBA though. And I really hope, because she, just as Dawn Staley pointed out, when she was celebrating the win for South Carolina, she pointed out, which is very true, Caitlin Clark has a lot of weight on her shoulders because there are a lot of eyeballs on her. She brought a lot of casual fans into women's basketball. So hopefully she can do that in the WNBA, and that brings more eyeballs. That'll bring a whole lot more stuff.
You know what the real tragedy with Caitlin Clark is that there's a lot of people online who are saying she's transgender. And that promotes a stereotype and discrimination against transgender people that's wrong. And if you go online, you can see that. And I think that's disgusting. I think transgender people need to be recognized and treated with equal dignity under the law. And I think that kind of stuff is really what's despicable and hasn't been reported. But Sasha had his hand up, and I'm just curious what he thinks of this.
Actually, I had a question to you, Adam.
Sure.
Certain people compare Trump to Abraham Lincoln. What are your thoughts on that, and how would you compare them?
My thoughts are that I would never in a million years compare Trump to Abraham Lincoln. It's a ridiculous comparison. He couldn't stand next to Abraham Lincoln. But in 2024, Trump, it's relative. Trump is running against Joe Biden. When you look at taxes, the border, the economy, the intangibles, the leadership, our reputation abroad, how people are doing economically under Trump was better than under Biden. But Sasha, comparing him to Lincoln is absolutely, whoever compares him to Lincoln is terrible. And you know what this country really needs is a third party, because Republicans
Adam,
are a disgrace, and so are Democrats. We need a third party to rise, and truly, we need the people to have more power and a voice in the democratic process.
Well, just to let you know, Adam, that was actually Gretchen's argument. Gretchen has actually written a book about it. She's actually written a book where she compares Abraham Lincoln to Trump and some of their similarities.
Well, she's not here, so I don't want to speak about her if she's not here.
We do have a third-party candidate. I just found.
Relax, Jacoby. It was one comment. Chill out.
Let Rick talk, please.
All right. So this.
Yeah, I don't take orders from you, buddy.
Let Rick talk, please.
RFK Jr.
I don't take orders from you, buddy. Do you want to keep going down this? Do you want to keep repeating this?
Go ahead, Rick.
RFK Jr. kept an extramarital sex diary in the year 2001. He listed 37 women, not his wife, that he had some amount of sex with. His wife, his second wife, I believe, found the diary, and then she hanged herself until dead. And this is our third-party candidate.
Yeah, I mean,
so what does your point prove? Does your point prove that we shouldn't have a third party, or does it prove just that he's not the right one?
We need better candidates. That RFK, a former heroin addict, and yeah, people can reform, but now he's gone from abusing heroin to.
Well, what about you? Why aren't you running for office? You're very smart. You're a very nice guy.
I've been.
But you're a really nice guy and you're really smart.
I've been a stripper and a nude art model, and I've been naked in public 1,500 times.
Brilliant people are creative. Movie. That's what they do.
My record will not stand. I mean, I can't run for office.
I'd vote for you. I like you. I would vote for you.
Well, we all can agree that we do need a third party, but starting at the federal level never works. Starting at the presidential level never works. You have to build a base of support. The only way to do that, you've got to start out with state and local. So until somebody or some group decides, okay, let me do this the smart way, we'll never end up with a third party or even a fourth party, because they keep wanting to jump in at the top. And the only thing that happens when you jump in at the top is you become a spoiler. Ross Perot was most notably was one of the biggest because he self-funded and was able to get the most amount of third-party votes, even more so than Nader and all the others. So the only way to do a third party, from the bottom. In terms of the economy, we always tend to forget about the crash of the market in 2019, the crash of the market in 2020. We always tend to forget that that Trump actually was the only president to lose jobs rather than having a net gain of jobs. We also tend to forget that things were spiking until COVID hit. We also tend to, COVID did all these extra things. Well, if you take COVID out, we don't have the record spending that Biden had to do to help bring down the COVID issues. So you cannot take out all these bad things Trump did. Oh, there were no wars. There were over 100 and some odd conflicts around the world that we were dealing with. We cannot just, we still had the Afghanistan war. Oh, well, the pullout was bad. Well, yeah, it looked bad because Trump did pull out a ton of soldiers and put us to the bare minimum. So when the pullout had to happen, the deal that he made with the Taliban, who we wanted to bring to Camp David, that had to happen at that time. And yes, it was poorly done, but there really wasn't much more that you could really do because the amount of soldiers. We couldn't throw in more soldiers because of the fact the Taliban already said, due to the deal, we are going to start shooting Americans. More military servicemen died under Trump than they did under Biden. So we can't forget all these
Sophie, I bet you've been boosted about 3 times. Huh? I bet you. I bet you thought it was the pandemic of the unvaccinated, huh?
We don't care what you have to say.
I've been boosted 8 times. I've had the vaccine.
Well,
8
then
times.
You're worse than Jatovi.
I don't even know what you said, Adam. You don't matter.
Adam, I would like to. We're talking about a certain issue.
I do like Jatovi. I do. I think he's a nice
One
guy.
of the very important issues is economy. You're absolutely right. So you know what is becoming now a popular terminology in financial circles? It's Biden's super economy, stupid. Biden's economy do it extremely well on all levels. The only remaining piece is that interest rates should go lower. Hopefully in June, they will start to go lower. It's all indication.
Ask that to the middle class. Ask that to the middle class who struggle to buy groceries because inflation is so high and the gas pump is so high.
Did middle class did so magnificently well during the Trump years? Probably not. If you remember Trump years, there was a lot of unemployment, and there was a Biden actually decreased unemployment to incredible levels. There was never such low unemployment in the United States in all its history. So the economy is doing particularly well. And if you want to go from some other angle, okay, go with immigration, go with that and that. Oh, by the way, abortion. Did you hear what Trump said today? He said, well, I don't know, the abortion is a complicated issue. Let's leave it to states for now. When he will become, all of a sudden it will become national ban. Everybody knows that this liar has pathetic the ability to lie to everybody, to higher people, to lower people, middle class. It doesn't matter. He's a pathological liar. Hopefully,
so the lowest African American and Hispanic employment rate was under what president? Donald Trump. Who passed the First Step Act?
Incorrect. Adam, you're
what
wrong.
What were home prices,
you're wrong.
Sasha,
it's
under Trump versus
Everything
Biden?
that you
what
said
were gas prices? What was inflation? What were interest rates?
Adam, you're lying. You are lying.
I'm lying. Yes, I'm lying. Attack me again. I'm lying.
Look it up.
Jacoby, go get your next booster.
Adam,
all right.
The reason
go wear a mask.
The reason you are lying.
And go listen to Anthony Fauci.
The reason you are lying is because the lowest unemployment is under Biden.
You sound like the mother that I never had.
Unemployment is under Biden. The statistics are there. We have the data. You just parroting Trump.
It happened I'm looking it up. It happened in April 2023. Black unemployment dipped lower than Trump's black unemployment.
But Rick, when Trump was president, was it the lowest African American employment rate in history? Yes.
Yeah,
right?
but then
He
Biden
just-
set a new record. The same way
Yes.
that Biden set a new record for oil drilling. Trump set a
And
record
what is the
for
price
oil
of
drilling.
the house
and-
under Biden
and
versus Trump?
Biden-
What's inflation under Biden versus Trump? What is the border like under Biden versus
Adam,
Trump?
we're ignoring.
What is the
we're
gas
ignoring
price under
COVID.
Biden versus Trump?
Remember,
Can I go down the line here?
COVID caused inflation. You're ignoring. the
COVID
fact
was
that
a sham.
we were putting dead bodies in the back of refrigerator trucks.
No, you weren't.
because
You
we
were
had
putting
so
people
many
in nursing homes who were already
Incorrect,
26
Adam.
minutes away from death
Adam,
into
this is
coffins
why
and saying they were
you're
COVID
forwarded,
deaths.
because the fact you keep lying.
Well,
Yeah, I'm lying.
so
Yes,
we're
I'm
allowed
fabricating.
and everything. Hold on a second.
So
We're
wait,
gonna
And
one second.
Utopia is on the vanguard of misinformation.
Killed, most
ahead,
of the
Rick.
people who've been killed by COVID are old people. However, it cost, based on life actuarial statistics, even though they were old, COVID cost the average dead person another decade, 10 full years
Yeah, that's
of
true.
further life of being
They
a
were
nana
6
or a
minutes away from
grandpa.
death from 7 cancers, and then they died. And
No,
Rick,
Now, there's
you know,
another false
Rick,
thing that you're
Rick,
yelling out. You're
the
saying
state of
another lie.
Illinois, the state of Illinois
Saying
said
another lie.
that every person who dies within 60 days of a positive COVID test is declared COVID-related death, regardless of the cause. Do you realize what a fraud that is?
Well,
Now,
I've seen-
The audience should know Jacoby is a nice guy, and he's a smart guy.
And
He's
that's
just
why I
a
come with the
left-wing
facts.
liberal.
You keep saying
And that's
all this
okay.
talking point
And
stuff.
Rick is a brilliant guy, and so is Sasha.
You
These are
keep
good
saying all
people.
this
This is a
talking
respectful
point.
debate.
I've seen death certificates. They list more than one cause of death. You're right, but that's what they do in every instance. If unless, like, even if somebody gets their head chopped off, it's heart failure that killed them, because without your head, your heart can't function. There's
Right. So Granny has stage 4 pancreatic
but
cancer,
just-
ovarian
just
cancer,
because-
breast cancer,
just
no head and no
because-
limbs, but she's
Wait,
a
just
COVID.
because-
Adam,
just
let me-
because somebody is fat or old or has cancer, it doesn't mean that they're disposable. They could have lived for years beyond that, being fat or old.
That's
and
not
COVID
true.
took those
They would have
years
died
away.
within
Wrong,
days,
Adam.
and they didn't die
Adam,
from COVID.
Adam, you're in litigation.
Then
You're not
refute the
actually
state of
medical.
Illinois,
So
which
just
said
point out-
60
just point
days,
out-
no matter what
point
the
out-
cause.
Adam, hold on.
Try
hold
to
on.
refute
So
Illinois.
what Rick is saying is
It's
factually
spelled
true. What Rick is saying
ILLINOIS.
is factually true. What you are saying,
Thank
are
you.
trying to make up this whole craziness. What Rick is saying is true. If somebody is living with diabetes and gets COVID and dies, COVID killed them, not diabetes.
Rick, what's your response to Illinois' policy?
Stop, Adam.
I haven't
Listen
heard you respond to it, Rick.
Stop,
What's your
Adam,
response?
hold on, Adam. You're a smart guy. Listen up. If somebody is living with pancreatic cancer and then gets COVID and then dies, COVID killed that person because they were living with the
No, it
pancreatic cancer.
Pancreatic
So
cancer.
the fact of the matter is, COVID being one of those things, if somebody has diabetes and gets shot, it's the bullet that killed them. It's not the diabetes.
That's
If
my
somebody
point.
gets shot
People
and
who got
has
shot were
cancer,
named COVID-related
bullet that
deaths.
killed them,
That's my
cancer.
point. Thank you.
There- Yes, exactly. That's why COVID was listed, because COVID was the one that exacerbated the situation and caused the actual death.
Why
That is
did Alameda County in California reduce its death toll by 30%? Why did Illinois say that all deaths within 60 days of a COVID positive result
Show
are
me
deemed
where they
COVID
said
related?
that.
That's even from a motorcycle accident.
Your word means nothing. Show me where they said that.
Then go online and look it up.
You made the allegation. Show me.
Just really quickly.
Okay, I'll
just-
show
just
you,
to wrap up
but I
before
can't
get
show
to
you
time
right
check
now.
programming and everything.
Oh, hold on.
You
You
share
asked me
it
a
in
question.
private
I would
chat.
say there are edge cases in either direction, and in some cases, I wouldn't say a high percentage. It's hard to determine. It's a chicken or egg thing. What exactly caused the person to take their last breath? But regardless, if you go by excess mortality, you compare the number of people who died in the COVID years to the average number of people who died in previous years, there's an excess mortality of roughly 1.4 million people. So something took those people out that didn't happen in previous years.
Yeah, the
And
people who couldn't get cancer treatment, who couldn't get mental health treatment, okay, who couldn't get treatment for heart ailments.
Why?
And you're talking about a correlation,
okay, but
but that does
true,
not
but that's
establish
true.
causation.
That's true. COVID causes some people who would have gotten treatment sooner to stay away from hospitals. But still, that's part of the landscape of death that resulted from COVID.
Exactly.
And we lost 1.4 million Americans above and beyond what we would have lost without COVID.
COVID
Just
was
really
the number
quickly,
one
hold on a
killer
second,
in
we're
the
going
US
to wrap
for
up and
all.
everything, but just really quickly, I was going to tell both Adam and Rick, since they both mentioned it and everything, stick to the local elections, because I can tell you for a fact that those skeletons can come out, and also people give you a lot of empty promises, even if you do it on the state level. And some people be like, what is Mark talking about? He never ran for state. No, I did not, but my mother ran for Secretary of State, so I did see it from a personal standpoint and all along those lines. So I think that we need
But it's not my fault that you guys live in North Carolina. You chose that. I mean, and you have my sympathy.
And on that note, we'll get on out of here.
I can agree with that. I agree that, yeah, North Carolina has some awful yeah, all right.
It's great seeing you guys again. Always thank you for the
You too.
discussion.
Right.